Absolutely. Just a moment. Here we go. So thanks for having me here. Thanks for having Sitedrive here. My name is Eetu Heiska. I have until 14:45, right? Sorry, 13:45 Norwegian time.
Yeah, 20 minutes, including questions.
Excellent. So I'll tell you a little bit about our philosophy, our approach, and then I'll show a few real-life examples to get an idea of what Sitedrive is all about. I'll breeze through the start. So yes, we are a legit company. We have a bunch of customers. There's nice names and logos like Skanska and YIT, Fira is big in Finland, some subcontractors, some developers, and then some also technical partners. We have taken it upon ourselves to focus on making it as easy as possible for any company, any crew in construction to continuously work towards industrialized construction. And I'll tell you a little bit of how we see that in a minute. There's a gazillion studies on productivity on the work site, so I'm not going to get stuck on this. One example from residential construction is that it can take us 4 or 5 calendar months to do 10, 15 days of work. It's very, very usual in construction. What not that many people talk about is the value of time. And it's worth another 20 minutes to go deeper into it. But for the one project ecosystem, the developer, the general contractor, and so on, a month is worth around 300,000 euros in a 20 million euro project in Finland. So, there is value in speed, as we probably all know. Another thing that I'm sure is familiar to everyone here is the issue of utilization. So the easiest and most simple way to discuss productivity in an understandable way with regular crews and sometimes regular directors as well in construction companies is through how empty our buildings are when we are in the construction phase. It's very common that whether it's an office building or whether it's a residential building, there's 1 or 2 people working per floor. And of course, as I'm sure everybody here knows, if we could get that utilization rate up, if we could get people productively working in most of our site, that would have a huge impact on our productivity and that way our throughput time as well. Industrialized construction is often described via these technical implementations. It's modularity, it's prefabrication, it's AI, it's technology in different ways. But what we've observed over 7 years of working at this is that really the core is the methodology. It's the relentless improvement of detail, reduction of batch size, improving the utilization rate. And then as we do that systematically, we start seeing what kind of solutions do we need. When is the right time to introduce prefabrication and when is the right time to introduce something else, right? But what people often forget is that we should go methodology first. We should follow the right process and then continuously improve that. And then eventually we get to the fun things that unfortunately often go first. So we want to support that journey, that right way of working, even if we are not quite there yet. Another thing about our approach is that typically, when you look at the software offering in the market, when you look at the consulting offering in the market for improving productivity, it's often revolving around a couple of specific methodologies or a few methodologies. And there's the traditional crews whereby, traditional project planning, taking the role of a project manager, not getting into the process. There's, last planner, CPM, there's TACT, there's location-based planning overall. And quite often we are sworn by 1 or 2 of these, and then we try to change the way we build by introducing that one methodology to our sites. We started out as traditional Gantt software and Gantt support and consulting, and then eventually we built a TACT module in our old Sitedrive. But what is quite uncomfortable delivering a TACT solution is that it only solves a small part of the project. It's something extra on top of everything else. Because in reality, for a construction crew, even in one project within different project phases, there might be different contractual obligations or types. There's different types of construction and phases. They all require slightly different approaches, often different methodologies. We may use TACT in the interior phase. We may use Last Planner for most of the project. Maybe the preparation planning is still done traditionally. And then we end up with a bunch of solutions and a bunch of consultants and a lot of work and adaptation for the site to survive with these different tools and schedules and plans that they need to synchronize, usually manually. Personally, I believe that that's one of the big reasons lean construction or TACT or location-based planning or just detailed planning and management hasn't really taken off at scale, is because for the regular crew, it's really, really complex and difficult. The best crews will always succeed, and I'm sure most people here come from one of those forerunner. Every company has one or two crews that succeed no matter what. They always do the TACT pilots and the Last Planner pilots and everything by the book, but then how do we get everybody on that level? I think that's the much more interesting problem. To tackle this, we, around a year ago, recoded all of Sitedrive so that it works around a core principle of having a single shared truth for the construction site, which means that there's only one schedule by which the work is planned and carried out with. It's accessible to everyone. There's mobile, browser, and so on. And I think most importantly, it's built in a way where we really encourage both the planners and especially the site crews to take it as an actual production plan, not as a contractual schedule that's, maybe describes what we thought we would be doing at some point, but an up-to-date live production plan. And to be able to do this, we've had to hire world-class designers. We've had to hire a huge coding team to get the performance in place. Because as soon as you start adding detail and you introduce tools to more than just the planners and companies, it has to be super easy. It has to be super responsive, quick to use, and visual. So we have kind of this popularistic approach of making it simple enough. But this is, to me, a really core thing is that you cannot have 5 or 10 or 15 schedules for a site and then assume that one of those, maybe the TACT schedule or something else, will somehow drive everything else magically. I think it has to be super simple for the site, for the regular crews to adopt it. So in the end, to simplify, again, how to get that lean thinking and make that natural without having to push too much. For us, once everything is in one schedule, once it supports Gantt planning and you can flip and look at it in a location-based way, you can build TACT. It's really easy to even facilitate workshops with the same tools straight into the digital tool. You can start more focusing on simply adding level of detail. Because as soon as the plans go from months to weeks, from weeks to days, from days to hours, the work packages, the size of the task, the productivity goes up and the utilization rate goes up. It doesn't really even matter what is the methodology behind it, as long as we keep making the batches smaller, we keep adding detail. So really kind of a change management learning for me is just if you just focus on slowly breaking it project by project smaller and smaller, everything else follows. And that'll be the gist of the demo as well. So yeah, so we focus on flow, not really just one methodology, and we believe that everything follows. I'll show you in a moment a real-life schedule made with Mika at one of our clients. Usually our clients are bigger companies with where they are looking to transform their whole portfolio into more productive construction. We often make a transformation plan together. What are the right steps for each crew to take next? We can't get everyone into one-day TACT on day one. Maybe just planning and managing digitally is the first good step for some crews. Maybe going from weeks to half a week is good for some. Maybe going from half a week to a day for the other. We try to find that right level of change. Mika was doing Gantt planning week per floor, very usual in Norway here as well. One of the best in his company for 20 years. Never thought he would do anything else. But we managed to get Mika to agree to try working in more detail than the week and floor level. And the first thing he said, as long as it's not TACT, because he had heard about it, he didn't like it, but he can try adding some detail. We had 2 3-hour sessions with him for his already made schedule that he had for an apartment building project. And from an around 18-month project, he saved 1.5 months by just going from floors to apartments and then seeing what he can do with the resources he had. There was no adding cost. There was no huge workshops and trainings. We just started clicking around and adding detail. That's all. And again, for the change management, it would be great if he was a great lean thinker and we went through a bunch of workshops. But in the end, now Mika, after having done this himself, he starts asking about different contract types, and he starts asking about logistics, and he starts asking about prefabrication, because now he knows what he needs to do next to improve a little bit and then improve a little bit more. I'll show you Mika's schedule. I'm sorry, it's for demo purposes, I've mostly translated, but I noticed that in some views I still missed some locations, but it's mostly in English. We are looking at a Gantt view of his schedule, quite traditional. I moved it up a little bit, so it's kind of in the middle here. And he's got the usual phases, very visual Gantt scheduling. I'm not going to go into details. His interior phase is here, but we didn't plan it here. In fact, we broke down his building into apartments, and we broke the apartments down into dry areas and bathrooms, and we made views for those. So what we did first is that we went into a dry room view that has the floors, the apartments, and under the apartments, all the dry rooms as an area for planning, going floor by floor. And we did all the planning here in a location-based view. It looks like tact, but it doesn't force you to work in tact. You can immediately change the duration of the tasks in time slots that you define. In this case, I think we have, we're meant to be using 4-hour tact slots, but it just means that's how the tasks snap. Because in real life, I find that often it's much better to build a realistic schedule than it is to force things into what looks like tact, but isn't really planned like it, for example. There's still a lot of emptiness here, way less than there was before. But of course, the main thing going from floors to apartments, or in an office building from maybe floors to 4 zones and then 8 zones and maybe 10 zones, is that you make the emptiness visible. There's a lot of white in an apartment level schedule that is completely full in a floor level schedule. Planned it together here, a lot of copy pasting. I can show you a couple of clicks in a minute. And then we planned the bathrooms in a very similar view. A little bit of a different kind of work sequence in the bathrooms, a bit more complicated with a little more to do with the tiling and so on. And then we went into a room that shows everything that's going on in our apartments. In a view that shows everything that's going on in our apartments. So this is both the queues combined because it shows me an apartment level tasks. I can still highlight. Let's see what's going on in my interior phase, in my bathrooms. This is what's happening in the bathrooms. Still shows me what else is going on in the apartment, kind of grayed out in the background. And here we synced the schedule. We made sure that we're not doing something, we're not carrying tiles through the apartment when the painting is going on and so on. And that's about it. And from the end, we saved around 6.5 weeks. I liked Mika's comment when we were done with this. Mika said, it cannot be faster than before because there's so much white still. Because the problem was so clearly in his face that there's so much emptiness all the time. There's nothing happening in the apartments. Yet we had already saved 1.5 months. So that's really the simplicity of it. As long as we start adding more and more detail and it's easy, he's got everything in the same place. I don't think Mika would have spent this time with us if it was just another extra schedule in an Excel somewhere or in another program. But we just imported his master schedule, and then we started adding detail in this location-based view. And anything he does here is always up to date, of course, in the Gantt, there's line of balance and so on. Doesn't have to be apartment buildings. I have permission to quickly show combined, there's 2 buildings, a school and a sports hall. It's a huge schedule. This is a live schedule. They are a couple of months late. These are status colors. The orange tasks are late. And what they still say is they love that they have this under control. They know exactly what's going on. I'm not going to zoom too much, not to show you the details, as they asked me not to go into too much detail, but there is a lot going on, and there will be a lot going on here. And they are fully digitally managing the site right here, mostly in the Gantt view, sometimes also in the location-based view. So they have everything here as well. Comprehensive single schedules. And just to give you a really quick idea on the editing, so we actually developed this partly together with Skanska Finland, and the main request from them was that it has to be as easy as Excel, which is not a nice request from a browser-based application. I'll create a new task. Maybe I'll create another task here. I have a couple of tasks. I can control, hold, click, select them. I can copy, paste really quickly. I can move things around, change durations. And if I go where I had a bit more tasks, for example, a really nice thing in comparison to Excel is that I can do 2 or 3 point selections. I can take kitchen appliance installation, go somewhere, there's my last one, to the end, and then I can just diagonally move everything forward. I can also do a 2 point selection, so I can go down from the 20th. Maybe I want to have a free day on the 20th here. And I'll just select everything here. And anything that overlaps with the 20th, I can move forward and then start moving again, for example. There's undo, and there's quick editing, cancels. There's subtasks, there's the mobile application, there's blocker management. We get our blockers in a nice list from our subcontractors, and much, much more. To conclude, I know a lot of software has the focus on the planners, and that is often what we get asked first as well, is how quick is it to plan a schedule, and do you have this automation or this tool or that tool for planning? For us, it's of course important to be easy and quick to plan. As you can see, it's really quick to edit. You can run workshops on the fly. We usually build our schedules on the fly with both the main contractor and the subcontractors present. We try different scenarios. But what's more important than anything else is that the site crew adopts it as their production plan. All of the planning goes to waste unless the crew feels like this is the truth of what we are going to be doing tomorrow. And if something from tomorrow moves forward, we decide we can't do something, we need a 1 week break. If their first thought isn't to update the plan, then there's a problem. Then it's just another printed out static schedule that's not going to help manage the site. So for the first time, we have crews in all our customers who are managing the production live in a digital tool. And I think that's more valuable than anything else, on top of doing this really, really quick location-based planning. So for us, it's a change management tool. It's to enable getting there into more and more detailed construction, making the problems visible by using location-based planning. But it's just as you concluded the last talk, it's still just a tool. It's there to support the change. Now I'll breathe. I think we have a couple of minutes if we have questions, and then we have to move on.
Thank you, Eetu, for a good presentation. And to you as well. We know within just a short 20 minutes, I mean, you could probably spend hours going into the details, but I think you did a good job of highlighting the main strengths.
Yeah.
Let's see if there are any questions. Looks like there's something here on the chat. Let's see. Constraint management. I know you mentioned it verbally and quickly showed it. Could you just give a quick intro there?
I can give a quick comment. So if by constraints we mean dependencies, then I think in Finland, in the last year since we released Sitedrive, we have received 0 requests for dependencies, because location-based planning means that you can see immediately what's linked to what. There are exceptions, and we know we need some visual tools for connecting, especially across locations. There's some more complex dependencies that need to be handled. We are currently designing that for implementation, mostly because we don't want to kind of copy the old ways of these heavy structures and spider webs of dependencies that need to be then pulled apart more often than not. So we are kind of looking for the most lightweight, user-friendly way to do that. maybe on the dashboards, most of our clients do it themselves with our API, so all our data is available to our clients. It's very structured. One of the great things about having a location-based schedule is that it forces a certain structure, makes the data usable. We are currently kind of standardizing our own front page metrics, but it's always a little bit tricky because there's many ways to schedule and many ways to structure a schedule. So to make it completely universal, there's a few things we can do, but mostly it's really quick to do for companies themselves with our data.
Seems like the modern approach is that you have good connections with data and kind of the client can create their own dashboards and stuff. And I'm sure James, who's next, will probably be a little bit on the same page there, as I know. So, but some tools also have dashboards within them. But yeah, seems like that's something to decide on when companies pick their systems. Okay, good, Eetu. Thank you so much for your presentation.